guys, welcome back to Between the Pylons. I wanted to hop on here real quick and talk about Roquan Smith requesting a trade out of Chicago, why he's leaving, where he could be going, and just the linebacker market as a whole and what Roquan Smith could do to change that market just a little bit. Let's get right into it here. He put out this whole thing on Twitter. You got to remember, Roquan is not working with an agent. He is negotiating his own contract, so I think that does cause a little bit of a hurdle for the team. I think that could be an element to all this, the fact that he doesn't have an agent and the fact that he put this out on Twitter himself. I do think part of it is kind of cool that that players just can kind of do this. Like, you can, basically get anything out that you want to get out to the masses. And this is what he said on Twitter, what he posted. The new front office regime doesn't value me here. They refuse to negotiate in good faith. Every step of this journey has been take it or leave it. The deal sent to me is one that would be bad for myself and for the entire linebacker market if I signed it. I've been trying to get something done that's fair since April, but their focus has been on trying to take advantage of me. He goes on to say, I wanted to be a Bear for my entire career, help this team bring a Super Bowl back to our city. However, they have left me no choice than to request a trade that allows me to play for an organization that truly values what I bring to the table. And just to break that down, he mentioned he would be signing a deal that would be bad for him and the linebacker market as a whole. I assume, and I think it's fair to assume, as a guy who is, he's had over 100 tackles in each year of his career. He's going into his 5th season now, so 4 straight years with 100 tackles or more. I think he had 163 this past season, which was 5th in the league. So, this is a productive linebacker, a very good linebacker drafted early on. He does deserve to get paid. But when you look at the market as a whole, just looking at Spotrac and where the market is, Shaquille Leonard, obviously, sorry, it's weird for me to say Shaquille, but he requested to change his name. So Shaquille Leonard, he leads the pack with an average of 19.7 mil a year. CJ Mosley had to move teams to get paid with the Jets at 17. And then after that, it falls off pretty substantially. Zach Cunningham, Deion Jones, Blake Martinez, Eric Kendrick, all getting in that 14 to 10 mil range a year. Bobby Wagner getting that legend pay here from the Rams a little bit. Then you go down to Devin White, who I believe was the 5th pick in the draft. So that's his rookie money right there, averaging $7 million. Josie Jewell rounding out the top 10, getting he signed a 2-year deal worth $11 million, so that averages out to 5.5 mil a year. He's a top 10 paid linebacker. He was drafted in the same class as Roquan Smith. He was drafted in the 4th round out of a Big Ten school. I'm blanking on the name, but it doesn't matter. So it's a very real thing. We always talk about the running back market being so unfair, so unreasonable. I looked it up. The Kenyon Drake is the 17th highest paid running back, and he averages 5.5 mil a year. So it's the inside linebacker market. Now, if you branch that out to outside linebackers and guys that are rushing off the edge regularly, yeah, it changes. Those guys are the money makers. But, Roquan Smith, we're talking about a guy who has 14 sacks in his career, so he's a good blitzer. He's a guy that can get to the quarterback. Obviously not regularly, but that's not his job. He's a middle of the field guy. He has good numbers across the board. This is a top 5 guy at his position trying to get a trade. He absolutely deserves the money. You always root for, especially, it's weird to say small market positions, but that's kind of how I look at positions like inside linebacker, running back, safety. There's positions that just aren't valued as a whole by the NFL, and these guys aren't going to demand the high dollars that certain other positions are going to demand. And with that comes the fact that they're not going to demand as high of a trade value. So I came up with 3 teams that just make the most sense to me as a team that would both need to make this move, value the position, and realistically could make this move and could afford it via draft picks or whatever the compensation would be. I'm not going to get into what that compensation would be. Seems like a late first would be reasonable, and if you're any one of these teams, specifically 2 of them, you probably think you're going to be drafting pretty late. Cowboys are the first team that come to mind. This is a team that we've seen invest significant value into that inside linebacker position. Obviously, like you can look at Micah Parsons, Defensive Player of the Year last year. You know, he played that edge outside linebacker role. Obviously, he was off ball as well, but like he basically just said, "Oh, I can also play edge," and was ridiculously good at it. So that's not quite what I'm talking about. To me, like that's a different type of guy than what a Roquan Smith is. To me, you know, when you look at the Cowboys, you're looking at, you know, Van Der Esch, who they spent a first-round pick on, who, I mean, he's gone down in value every single year. It seems like that rookie year was awesome, but just we haven't seen that level of production continue. They drafted Jabril Cox out of LSU in the 4th round last year. They drafted 2 linebackers late this past year. So we've seen them like consistently want to add to that division or to that room, and obviously, you know, it's been hit and miss. They weren't the best defense in general last year, but specifically against the run, they weren't super great at all by any means. And then you look at the rest of their division, yeah, you have the Eagles that presumably are going to want to be run first like they were last year. You have the Commanders, who we don't really know what to expect and not really worried about, and then the Giants, who are definitely going to be run first as well with Barkley. So like I look at that as a real impact, and then you could even take that to a broader sense and say, man, what could Roquan Smith do on a Cowboys defense when you're playing the 49ers in the playoffs, or you know, one of these other teams? Like, you know, Rams like to run the ball a good bit as well. There's a lot of value there. Stopping the run is very, very important. Obviously, we all know that. But to me, the Cowboys, it seems like they're going to be a team that makes a lot of sense, as they have the need. They can probably afford it. We know Jerry Jones is not afraid to go get marquee guys and go pay them. So have no fear there. And yeah, they are scheduled to play a lot of run-first football teams. And it makes sense to me as a team that would at least inquire about it, right? And then my second option is the Raiders, which is just a team that, like, it just feels like they're a team that's so like ready to believe they are making that next step. Makes sense from a cap perspective. I think they have the 2nd most cap room in the NFL, and I think it makes sense from a front office perspective on, okay, they went and got Devontae Adams, paid him a shit ton of money. They have to believe that offense is ready to go with a good running back room, with a complete wide receiver room at this point, and a quarterback that I think a lot of people would agree is going to be in that borderline top 10 conversation every year, top 15 probably. Like, yes, he's not a marquee elite quarterback, but he's right in that next tier, I would say. So offensively, from a front office perspective, they gotta love that. And then you look at the defense, and it's like, okay, well, who do we have? We have Denzel Perryman. Okay, not terrible, but not the best. We have some pieces on that defensive line. We have some pieces in the secondary. We've spent a lot of resources to shore up that safety position, and hopefully that secondary can make some noise. But I mean, we're talking about a team that is the 19th best run defense in the league last year. Roquan Smith could fit into that, and you know, from a front office perspective, they could look at the value of Roquan Smith on the field and say, yes, this is our missing piece. This is our chief, our quarterback on the defense in the middle of the field, running things. If they see him as that piece, it makes sense to me why they would make that move. And then just in a broader sense, this is realistically, everyone views the Raiders as the 4th best team in that division, but they're not the 4th best team in any other division in football, in my opinion. I think everyone would say they're better. Like they're a good team on paper. They're a great team. At least arguably, they're a great team on paper. They just happen to be in a division with the Chiefs, with Herbert and the Chargers, and with Russ in the Broncos, and we just don't know how it's going to play out. I could see them looking at the situation they're in and saying, yeah, we need dogs on defense. We need help just a little bit on defense to really make that push. And then even in a broader sense, that entire AFC is going to be tough. There's going to be a lot of rows. Realistically, Raiders fighting for that wild card spot. You know, you just never know. I could see that making sense on a storyline basis in a lot of ways. And then the last one is kind of a wild card one for me. I don't think a lot of people would be thinking this team, but to me it makes sense in a lot of ways, and that is the Bengals, right? You look at the Cincinnati Bengals as another team Offensively, they're set. I mean, they went out and got 3 pieces of their offense in free agency. They obviously have the trio of wide receiver. They have Joe Burrow. They have Joe Mixon. Offense is good, right? The offense is the reason they got there. And then you look at defensively, yeah, they have some pieces. Trey Hendricks is a great piece. He did account for 32% of the pressures and 41% of the sacks when he was on the field for the Cincinnati Bengals last year. So like he's a huge piece of that defense, which is it points to the fact that there aren't a lot of other playmakers in that front seven, which is okay. You do have Logan Wilson, 3rd round pick a couple of years ago, who is a really good player, and he's probably a young star in this league. I don't think it's an insult to say, hey, we could have 2 really good inside linebackers and our defense could just be that much better. Added to the fact, you look at the rankings of front sevens of linebackers, they're near the average to bottom half of the league by pretty much every source. Then you look at where they're at in their division, and you're playing a Ravens team, which is huge run first football team. You need to be able to stop the run. Roquan Smith is great at that. And by the way, just as an aside, I'm not saying Roquan Smith isn't good in coverage. He's a top 5 inside linebacker for a reason. He can do it all. But at the end of the day, you look at inside linebackers as a big piece to your run defense, and that's kind of like why I'm using him in that way. And I definitely think a team that needs help in the run department specifically would value him more than a team like even the Raiders that are going to be playing the Chiefs and the Chargers and realistically the pass first Denver Broncos. Although we don't know exactly what that offense is going to look like. That it just makes more sense that, hey, a team like Cincinnati, who's going to have to play the Ravens, like I said, the Cleveland Browns, who, yes, they have Deshaun Watson coming in the second half of the year. Maybe we don't really know how that's going to play out yet, but they have the combination of a Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, assuming Kareem Hunt doesn't get a trade, which that request was happened. And hey, put in the comments if you want me to talk about him too. And then obviously the Steelers, who are going to kind of just ride Najee Harris until the wheels fall off, which they give him 500 touches a year, they're going to fall off pretty quick. But again, that just speaks to the division they're in. It makes a lot of sense to me to add that piece, and they're a team that they can afford it. One, because you're paying $20 million to the trio of Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. That's not going to last. You're going to have to pay those guys in a couple of years. But right now, you can afford it. So, that makes sense to me from a logic perspective. They know they need to shore up the defense. You look at what they drafted last year. They spent 1 pick on the offensive line and the rest on defense last year. So they know they need a little bit of help in that department. And yeah, to me, that makes a whole lot of sense. Only problem is Cincinnati is not historically a team that wants to make those big moves. Not historically a team that's going to trade for a top pick. But hey, they just changed their name. They have Joe Cool in the house. You just never know. Maybe they'll be changing it up and making a move like that. All right, that's all I have on the subject. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe. Let me know where you think of Roquan Smith is going to go, if he goes anywhere. What you think is going on in that Bears facility as to why they don't want to pay him, even though the Bears have the money and presumably would want to keep a marquee player that has at least said that he wants to be a Bear for the rest of his life. How much does the fact that he doesn't have an agent affect this entire storyline? I think that's an undiscussed part of this that might have a real effect on where Roquan Smith's head's at and where the Bears front office feelings are on the player. I don't know. It's just conjecture, but it's interesting to think about. I'm gonna hop off right now. Thank you so much, guys. Peace.